The sharp clinking sound of coins hitting the floor cut through the restaurant like a slap. Every head turned. The rich man didn't even look down as he tossed them, casually, lazily, like they meant nothing. Like she meant nothing. The coins rolled across the polished tiles, spinning, dancing under the soft yellow lights before settling near the feet of the young waitress standing frozen in front of him. "Pick it up," he said, his voice smooth but cold, carrying just enough arrogance to make the entire room uncomfortable. Silence spread like a stain. The air grew heavy. The waitress didn't move. Her fingers trembled slightly at her sides, her breath shallow, her eyes fixed on the scattered coins like they were something far heavier than metal. "Have you ever been humiliated so deeply that your body forgets how to respond?" That was her now. The man leaned back in his chair, adjusting his expensive watch, a faint smile playing on his lips as he observed her stillness. "I said," he repeated, slower this time, louder, "pick it up." "That's your tip." A couple at a nearby table exchanged uneasy glances. Someone quietly set down their fork. The clatter of dishes from the kitchen faded into the background, as if even the noise itself was afraid to interrupt this moment. The waitress finally moved, not quickly, not angrily, but carefully, like every motion carried weight. She knelt down. One coin, then another, each one echoing softly as it touched her palm. Her hair fell forward, hiding her face from the room. Maybe that was mercy, or maybe it made it worse. The man watched, amused. "You should be grateful," he added. "That's probably more than you earn in an hour." A quiet chuckle escaped him. But no one else laughed. Because something about the moment felt wrong. Deeply wrong. The waitress paused, her fingers closing around the last coin. For a second, she didn't stand. She just stayed there, on the floor. Then slowly, she rose. And when she looked up, something had changed. Her eyes weren't broken. They weren't pleading. They were steady. And that's when she spoke. Softly. So softly that at first, it didn't seem like it could possibly matter. But it did. Because the moment the name left her lips, the man's smile vanished. Daniel Carter. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it hit harder than anything else in that room. The man froze. Completely. His fingers tightened slightly on the armrest. His eyes flickered. Just for a second, but enough. Enough for anyone paying attention to notice. "Excuse me," he said, his tone no longer as smooth. The waitress tilted her head slightly, studying him now. Not as a customer, not as someone above her, but as someone she knew. "Do you not recognize me?" she asked quietly. A strange tension crept into his expression. "I think you're mistaken," he replied quickly, too quickly. But she didn't back down. "Not this time. Or maybe," she continued, her voice trembling just slightly, "you just forgot where you came from." The room held its breath. Have you ever seen someone powerful, suddenly unsure? It was happening now. Daniel Carter, the man who walked into the restaurant like he owned the world, looked like someone had just pulled the ground out from under him. "I don't know what game you're playing," he said, standing up abruptly. But his voice lacked the confidence it had moments ago. The waitress stepped closer, close enough that only he could fully hear her next words. But the silence in the room made it feel like everyone could. "You used to say you'd never forget me," she whispered. His face drained of color. "No," he muttered under his breath. And suddenly, the past came rushing back. Rain hitting broken windows. A small apartment filled with laughter despite the emptiness. Two people sitting on the floor, sharing a cheap meal, dreaming of a future they didn't have. Her. Always her. Different clothes. Different life. But those eyes. Those same eyes. "Maya," he said, barely audible. A tear slipped down her cheek. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just real. "Yeah," she said softly. "It's me." The room felt smaller now. Tighter. Like the air itself was watching. Daniel took a step back. Then another. As if distance could undo what just happened. "That's not possible," he said. You disappeared." Maya let out a quiet, painful laugh. "Funny," she said. "I was about to say the same thing." A silence fell between them, heavy with years of unanswered questions. Of choices. Of consequences. "Where have you been?" he asked, his voice softer now. "Right here," she replied. "Surviving." Her gaze dropped briefly to the coins still clutched in her hand. "While you were busy forgetting." That hit harder than anything else. Daniel's jaw tightened. "I didn't forget," he said. "Then why didn't you come back?" she asked. No anger. Just pain. Raw and unfiltered. "Have you ever asked someone a question, knowing the answer might break you?" Daniel didn't respond. Because there was no easy answer. And deep down, he knew it. The manager suddenly rushed over, his face tense. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, glancing between them. Daniel straightened, quickly pulling himself back together. "No," he said, "no problem," but his voice wasn't convincing anymore. "Not to Maya, not to anyone." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a thick stack of bills this time, placing them on the table. "Keep it," he said, avoiding her eyes. But she didn't take it. Instead, she slowly placed the coins back on the table, one by one. The sound echoed louder than before. "I don't want your money," she said quietly. He finally looked at her again. And this time, there was no arrogance, no superiority, just something fragile, something broken. "Then what do you want?" he asked. Maya held his gaze, steady, unshaken. "I want you to remember," she said. And for the first time in years, Daniel Carter realized, this wasn't a moment he could walk away from. And this time, the past wasn't going to let him. Daniel stood there, frozen between who he had become and who he used to be, the noise of the restaurant slowly returning around him like a distant storm fading back in. But for him, everything had already changed. Maya's words didn't just echo, they settled deep inside him, stirring something he had buried long ago. Something he had convinced himself no longer mattered. "I remember," he said finally, but the words sounded weak even to him. Maya shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered, "you remember the good parts. Not what came after." Her fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the table, as if grounding herself. "Do you remember the night you left?" she asked. Daniel's chest tightened. Of course he did. It had been raining. The kind of rain that blurred everything, streets, lights, even decisions. He had stood in that tiny apartment, a suitcase in his hand, his heart torn between ambition and love. "I was supposed to come back," he said, his voice quieter now. "But you didn't," she replied. Simple, final. Have you ever made a choice you thought was temporary, only to realize it changed everything forever? Daniel had. "I tried," he said quickly. "Things got complicated, opportunities came, and I thought, just a little more time, just one more step, and then I'll return." Maya let out a soft, bitter breath. "There's always one more step, Daniel," she said. "That's how people leave, not all at once, but little by little." The truth in her words hit harder than any accusation. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration and regret colliding inside him. "I built everything from nothing," he said. "I didn't have a choice." "You always had a choice," she replied gently, echoing something he had once told her long ago. He fell silent, because this time, he knew she was right. A waiter passed by awkwardly, pretending not to listen, but the tension was impossible to ignore. People at nearby tables tried to act normal, but their eyes kept drifting back. Because moments like this, they pull you in. They make you wonder, what happened between them? Why does it hurt this much? Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Why didn't you try to find me?" he asked. Maya looked at him for a long second before answering. "I did," she said. That wasn't what he expected. His brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I went to the places you said you'd be," she continued. "I called numbers that didn't work. I asked people who didn't care." Her voice trembled slightly, but she didn't stop. "And then one day, I saw you." Daniel's heart skipped. "Where?" he asked. "On a screen," she said. "Big office, big smile, big success." She swallowed. "You looked happy." The words felt like a quiet knife. "And I realized, maybe I was just part of a life you outgrew." Daniel shook his head immediately. "No, that's not true, isn't it?" she asked softly. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. "Because how do you prove something you never fought for? Have you ever tried to explain your silence, when silence itself became your loudest mistake?" Daniel felt that now, every second of it. "I never stopped thinking about you," he said finally. Maya's eyes flickered. "That doesn't change what happened," she replied. "I know," he said. "But it means something." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down at the coins still resting on the table. "That," she said quietly, "means something too." He followed her gaze, and for the first time since walking in, he truly saw it. Not just the coins, but what they represented. The distance, the difference, the fall. "I didn't know it was you," he said, his voice filled with regret. "And if I hadn't said your name?" she asked. The question hung in the air. Heavy, unavoidable. Daniel didn't answer, because the truth was obvious. And painful. Maya nodded slowly, as if his silence confirmed everything. Exactly, she whispered. A tear slipped down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away, refusing to let it fall further. I'm not angry, she added after a moment. Not anymore. That surprised him. Then what are you? He asked. She looked at him, really looked at him. Tired, she said. Not dramatic, not loud, just honest. Tired of wondering what we could have been, she continued. Tired of carrying something that only mattered to me. Daniel felt something inside him crack. Because he knew, she wasn't wrong. I can fix this, he said suddenly, stepping forward. We can start over. I can help you. I can. She raised her hand gently, stopping him. Don't, she said. The word was soft, but firm. I don't need saving, she continued. And I don't need your money. He shook his head. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant, she said. But you still don't understand. She took a slow breath. What I needed, was you, she said quietly. Silence. Pure. Heavy. Final. Have you ever realized too late that someone didn't want your success, they just wanted you? Daniel closed his eyes for a brief second, the weight of everything pressing down on him. I'm here now, he said. Maya smiled faintly. Are you? She asked. The question lingered, because being present, and truly being there, are not the same thing. Daniel stepped closer again, his voice softer than it had ever been. Tell me what to do, he said. Maya hesitated. For a moment, it looked like she might say something. Like she might give him a chance. But then, she shook her head. Sometimes, she said gently, there's nothing left to do. The words didn't come from anger. They came from acceptance. And that made them hurt even more. She placed the coins neatly on the table. Then stepped back. I forgave you a long time ago, she said. I just forgot to let go. Daniel felt his chest tighten. And now, he asked. Maya looked at him one last time. And this time, there was peace in her eyes. Now I remember how, she said. She turned, and walked away, just like he once did. Step by step, without looking back. The door opened, closed, and she was gone. The restaurant returned to normal slowly, like nothing had happened. But for Daniel, everything had. He stood there, staring at the empty space where she had been, the coins still sitting on the table like a quiet reminder of everything he couldn't undo. Have you ever watched someone walk away, and realized you were the reason they had to? That moment stays. It doesn't fade. It doesn't soften. It just lives with you. Daniel slowly sat down in the chair he had once occupied with confidence. Now it felt different, smaller. He picked up one of the coins, turning it between his fingers. It felt heavier than it should have. Because it wasn't just metal anymore. It was regret, time, missed chances. He placed it back down carefully. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about deals, or meetings, or success. He was thinking about a small apartment, rain on broken windows, and a girl who believed in him before the world ever did. And he realized something then. Success doesn't erase the past, and money doesn't fix what you chose to abandon. Some things, you don't get back, and some names, stay with you forever.